So I'm Brian Wardle from Air Astro and McGee, it is my great pleasure to be able to introduce our speaker today, Harry Allen. Harry Allen, hip-hop activist and media assassin, has written about race, politics, and popular culture for nearly 40 years. As an expert covering hip-hop culture, he's been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, NPR, CNN, the BBC, and many other sites. He is known by many for his longtime association with the iconic band Public Enemy and for his widely heard cameo on their classic record, Don't Believe the Hype. Harry Allen worked in the Crisis PR Public Affairs Department of computer entertainment giant Rockstar Games from 2004 to 2006. He considers his credit on the hit title Grand Theft Auto San Andreas his proudest byline. His career in singular research on architectural design in computer and video games has been recognized by the Graham Foundation, the Smithsonian Institution's Lemelson Center for the Study of Invention and Innovation, the New York State Council on the Arts, the Architectural League of New York, and the McDowell Colony. Allen lectures at colleges and universities around the country, speaking about documentary photos he made of Public Enemy's members before the band was formed. This talk, Shooting the Enemy, features images that have been shown in numerous documentaries and magazines. Many of them are also now part of the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of African American History and Culture's permanent collection. Allen is a two-time, in 2017 and 2025, Nasir Jones Hip Hop Fellow at Harvard University. He is also a 2020 cast at MIT visiting artist and is currently a 2026 visiting scholar in the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Visiting Professors and Scholars Program at MIT. Allen recently founded HARD, Hallie Allen R&D, a boutique for developing singular and outrageous projects. His debut efforts include Harbanger, a turntablist, septet, he founded at MIT, and the Hip Hop Deep Space Monument, HHDSM, which will propel a music-filled time capsule far from Earth, also undertaken at MIT and about which he will speak today. Allen lives with his wife, Zakiya, near Washington, D.C. Please join me in welcoming Harry Allen.
Have you ever seen a photograph or a page in a magazine which affected you so much, you not only never forgot it, but it opened up an entirely new wing in your thinking? I have. I was in 5th grade, attending Whispering Pines Seventh-day Adventist School in Old Westbury, New York. I was in the library. It wasn't really one. It was just a room stuffed with industrial shelving, books, and magazines somebody had no doubt donated or more likely dumped. The racks seemed dominated by copies of National Geographic. I really liked Nat Geo and its depictions of a world exploding in mystery, wonder, beauty, and escape. So because it was there, I picked up the April 1965 issue, opened it to page 525, and saw this picture. As you can see, the picture was of a wizened man, Dr. Leonard Carmichael of National Geographic, and a far younger, unnamed female companion, both gazing at a large table covered in white cloth, as though staring at a buffet. However, its offerings were not culinary, but cultural. A heat shield from the Project Mercury Aurora 7 spacecraft, a small box of all detergent soap, a bikini, a 45 RPM record of the Beatles single, A Hard Day's Night, a can of freeze-dried food, a ruby laser rod, contact lenses, a pack of filtered Kent brand cigarettes, a United States flag, irradiated seeds, a Polaroid camera, and a copy of the Holy Bible. The photo presents about 45 such objects, ones of then contemporary scientific, technological, or popular interest. Underneath was another photograph of what looked like a 7.5-foot brass-colored ballpoint pen. But quickly I came to understand This was the container for these items. Strange as all of this seemed to my young mind, what most left me reeling was the headline. Legacy, AD 6939. I was looking at my very first time capsule, what William E. Jarvis, in his definitive history of the phenomenon, calls, quote, significant attempts to transfer cultural information across the millennia, sending out slices of our time to the future, end quote. For me, it was an utter and complete revelation. It was the first time I'd seen it proposed that via a thoughtful assembly of our common goods and artifacts, we might convey, indeed direct, a message to long from now humans, to people in the, my goodness, the 70th century, nearly 5,000 years hence. In the 20th century, the 70th century didn't even sound like real words. I mean, to a fifth grader, 6939 didn't look like a year. It looked like what you got after doing multiplication. Much of what you need to know about the work I'm doing today was seeded when I saw this page in that distant copy of National Geographic. It was started by that, and by one more thing. Less than a decade after the 1965 Westinghouse time capsule was entombed in New York City's Flushing Meadows Corona Park, the same place that the final boss bug battle took place in Men in Black. A vibrant and radical art form would come to life fewer than a dozen miles away in the South Bronx. Hip hop, or for the uninitiated, rap music and its associated art forms. Hip hop, which combined lyrical, instrumental, graphic, and dance forms of complex, syncopated freeness, would become the most compelling artistic and political movement of my entire life. Which is why, in 2029, 50 years after the first rap record, Rapper's Delight, was released, I expect to send a message to the universe in the form of hip-hop culture. My name is Harry Allen. I'm a writer, a producer, and some know me as media assassin for the iconic Public Enemy. But I'm also a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. visiting scholar here at MIT. It's in that role I'm CEO, founder, and principal investigator for the Hip Hop Deep Space Monument, or HHDSM. With the backing of my academic host, aeronautics, astronautics, and mechanical engineering professor Brian Wardle, who gave me that kind introduction, along with CMSW professor Amy Carlton, right over there with her lovely glasses, as always, plus a growing team of gifted undergrads, docs, and postdocs, some of whom are here. I'm working to design and build a hip-hop musical time capsule, one which, in the harsh vacuum of the spatial void, would last at least 1 billion years. This sonic repository would contain 50 to 100 of hip-hop's most transcendent recordings, its masterworks. Which ones? I tend to think of the collection as the records with which, if the world were destroyed and we preserved them, we might be able to start the culture over again. My objective is to put together a global body of hip-hop artists, fans, and aficionados, as well as other hip-hop experts. These people, through a representative process, will select the recordings to be so honored from the entire 50-year recorded history of hip-hop. Once the collection is launched into space, our current vision is for the time capsule to be carried into the void on a solar sail or light sail, such as this one, via a gasp trajectory That's gravity assist and solar pressure. It's an acronym that it appears I came up with here at MIT. So there goes into my sample reel. In other words, the craft, originally to be called Mandala, but now likely to be called Qumran, will be taken to a point above Earth's atmosphere. Light sail technology, says the Jet Propulsion Laboratory's Slava G. Turishev, combined with rideshare and deployment at Earth orbit and the use of small-sat architecture components, allow dramatic reduction in mission costs and lead time. LightSail 2, a $7 million low Earth orbit solar sail mission launched in 2018, has operated successfully for 2 years in orbit. In this slide, MIT's Richard Linares neatly sums up the way solar sails work. Photons have momentum. A mirror reflects them. That push moves the sail. No fuel, no engine, no exhaust, just sunlight. And it never runs out, at least not for billions of years. Because not only is the sun long-lived, but in the relative frictionlessness of space, things that move tend to keep moving. All those sci-fi shows and movies you've seen with ships going and their rockets or whatever firing, lies. Completely unnecessary, unless you're changing direction or braking. In this slide, Linares and Giovanni Lovezzi, who I'm so honored to be is here, have created a really gorgeous graph. On the left, it's mapping the geometric path of the solar sail as it reaches perihelion. Or it should be, it may, okay, there it goes. As it reaches perihelion, its closest approach to the sun, before being blasted out by A, gravity assist, and B, the pressure of the sun's intense light. That's the GASP protocol. On the right, the graph shows the craft's distance from the sun over a 3-decade period. At first, its orbits of the sun are quick and short, as signified by that short hop. But soon they become longer and longer and longer, until presumably the craft's speed equals or exceeds 42.1 kilometers per second, which is solar escape velocity at the distance of Earth. Think of these orbits as akin to a hammer throw. In the sport, the thrower builds centrifugal force by rotating more and more rapidly before releasing the hammer. The sun is doing something somewhat similar, except the sun doesn't need a cable or a handle because it has immense gravitational power. This makes the orbiting solar sail come in and go out until it builds enough force to compel its fast release. As Linares says in this companion slide, the trick, go in to go out. 1, spiral toward the sun. 2, dive close to perihelion. 3, sun's radiation blasts you out like a surfer catching a wave. The closer you get, the harder it pushes. It's straightforward, but it's not simple, particularly for a homegrown effort like this one. According to the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, as of 2024, 20,344 objects have been launched into space since Sputnik in 1957. 11,969 from the United States. Of all these, only 5 craft have left the solar system. We're working to be the 6th, and the first to leave without the imprimatur of a government or other national or international body. Or, to put it another way, I'm proposing flying a microlight through space in formation with barnacle geese. Now, nothing in the plan I've just proposed is impossible. None of it relies on yet-to-be-invented materials, methods, or tools. It requires no warp drives, no antimatter, no unobtainium. But it's a big dream, which is why I'm at MIT. MIT is literally the dream factory. Every time you look at a copy of MIT News, you're reading about things that 6 months, a year, or 5 years ago were deemed impossible. At MIT, when you say you're working on a crazy idea, people say, "What is it?" When you tell them, they don't say, "That's impossible." They say, "Well, what you want to do is," and then they offer a suggestion. Now, you guys might be used to this, but outside of MIT, it's not that way. This is a great place to think big ideas. Still, by being here, I've not eliminated any of my project's obstacles. In one lecture I give, I name a very short list of 5. Here, let me name just one major obstacle. Number 1, the incomprehensible enormity of the spatial void. One of the hardest things to convey to most people is how big space is. There is nothing any person commonly experiences which in any way prepares one to truly understand it. The best way we may do so, perhaps, is by analogies. So let's start with a model, then cite a real-life example, if you'll indulge me. This is a standard size 7 NBA regulation basketball, 29.5 inches in circumference. Let's pretend that this is our big, beautiful, glorious sun. Now, if so, how big would the Earth be? The Earth is about 2 millimeters in diameter, the size of the glass bead next to this dime. Here's how they look next to each other, and if you miss the Earth, it's right there. At this scale, where would the Earth be? About 86 feet away. That's almost the distance between the bases on a baseball diamond, which is 90 feet. Now, up on the pitcher's mound out in space is Proxima Centauri, the nearest star to our sun. How big would the red dwarf star Proxima Centauri, the nearest star to our sun, be? Compared to the sun, it's about the size of a ping pong ball, approximately 40 millimeters or 1.5 inches. Here it is next to Earth. Now, how far away would it be at this scale? Well, to house it, we'd have to put it in the Stade du 26 Mars, or March 26 Stadium, in Bamako, Mali, which is only 4,270 miles away. Now, I want to say that again to make sure you get this. If our sun was a basketball, the nearest star to the sun would be a red dwarf ping pong ball, 4,270 miles away. That's the nearest star, the most local star, the one next door. All the other 1 trillion stars in the visible universe are farther away, and overwhelmingly, most are much, much, much farther away. Now let me give you a real-life example. Had you ever heard of the 1977 Voyager space probe? Each bears a copy of the Golden Record, which you can see in front of you, a gold-plated copper LP containing, as well as other material, nearly 30 musical selections. The compositions represent civilizations and times throughout our planet's history. Johann Sebastian Bach to Peruvian panpipes, Chuck Berry to Japanese koto. Created by Carl Sagan, John Lomberg, Anne Drian, and others, the Golden Record is an absolute masterpiece of human curatorial purpose and the major inspiration for my HHDSM project. 8 months from yesterday, on November 18th, 2026, after traveling for nearly 50 years at 10.5 miles per second, Voyager 1 will reach the distance of 1 light day from Earth, the distance at which radio signals to Voyager will take a day to reach it, and radio messages back to Earth will take the same time. That distance is 16,094,799,105 miles. On light day, Voyager will be, as it is now, without question, the farthest man-made object ever. However, on the scale of my "the sun is a basketball" model, Voyager is only about 2.75 miles away, or nearly 1.5 times the length of the National Mall in Washington, D.C. That's a vast span, but it's nowhere near Bamako, Mali's 4,270 miles from this point, where Proxima Centauri, the nearest star, resides. Voyager's cruising speed is 37,800 miles per hour. At that speed, it would go from New York to Los Angeles, a trip that normally takes 6 hours, in less than 4 minutes. Voyager 1 is not headed to LA, nor is it headed in the direction of Proxima Centauri. But if it was, going there at 10.25 miles a second, getting there would take over 75,000 years. This fact, the immense vastness of space, and the time it takes to cross any part of it, is the basis of almost everything having to do with projects which take place there. It is always at least a major factor. It also means in space there are no short trips. They are all just the same variation of long. And I should just say here as well, when I first started working on this idea of putting something in space, I had the typical romantic notion of rockets, maybe even an RTG, or radioisotope generator. And then I talked to a company that was in the business, an upstart, that was in the business of helping entrepreneurs get into space. And the founder and I had a conversation, and he said something that really, for some reason, flipped a switch for me, because he was talking about solar sails as a possibility, as a low-cost possibility compared to these other means. And that was like almost un-American to me. I was like, I want to drive a GTO, not a Prius. But then he said, you have to really think about something. There are no fuel depots in space. Whatever you need, you got to take with you. There's no place to refuel. And then he said in so many words that anyone attempting to challenge the void would do well to take advantage of the most powerful source of energy for light years in any direction, which is the sun. And that conversation turned a switch for me. It made me stop thinking in this sense of like, well, I need a rocket to be real, or I need to figure out how to do that, to thinking about, wow, find a way to get there and use the technology that makes the most sense. But that's a distance issue. That's a distance issue, essentially. I've hinted at, but not explored, the difficulties of engineering, navigation, materials, communication, heat, personnel, etc. All of these make the HHDSM project ultimately not only challenging, but even perhaps a bit unlikely. So, why do it? Because hip-hop was also unlikely. When hip-hop began, the conventional wisdom was that it was, quote, a fad that would soon go away, end quote. This is what thoughtful, knowledgeable, experienced people were saying about it. And they were all, by orders of magnitude, wrong. Instead, hip-hop, a raw, unfiltered roar from the sons and daughters of slaves, went on to dominate not just American culture, but the world's, making entry across borders the English language has otherwise barely traversed. I love hip-hop culture, but I loved the universe first. After all, I was born there. My vision is that the hip-hop Deep Space Monument will create a curated moment to think deeply about what hip-hop music has made and achieved, and why. This will, as well, forge an opportunity to look up in a new way at the night sky, something everyone on Earth already does. Most of all, though, it will also enable we who are passionate about hip-hop to think meaningfully about the cosmos and the wonders it contains, one more of which will soon be the hip-hop Deep Space Monument. Thank you. Now, before we bring the lights up and I take your questions, comments, suggestions, or complaints, I want to make a special appeal. About 5 years ago, I knew I wanted to travel to colleges and universities and talk about this project. So I reached out to the creator of this image, Brian Versteege of spacehabs.com. What's interesting is that Brian is a great visualist with a fantastic grasp of the future, and his work on Instagram shows this skill. So I told him that I wanted to create a very stylized version of this image, a wireframe seen from head-on from an extremely wide angle. That's what I wanted to do. And I sent him this. So we were off to a good start. In fact, we struggled. And it was turning, he was turning around work quickly, but he wasn't getting the idea. And we kept talking, and this went on for about 3 weeks. Now, I wasn't on any deadline, so it was fine, the time we were taking, but I couldn't get past the block that we were having. He wasn't delivering what I wanted. However, we were also working through his regular client, a mutual friend, who was doing me a favor by connecting me to his artist. So eventually, this client said, I'm taking myself out of this. The two of you work this out. And that's when Brian said, let's talk on Zoom. So we did. And about 67 minutes after we were done, he emailed me a note. He said, I'm hoping I have a better understanding of what you are looking for. How's this? And I wrote back, this is almost perfect. It's one of the best experiences I've had as the client of an artist. And I'm looking for more experiences like this. I believe in the ability of artists to improve in not only our lives, but our dreams. So I'm looking for gifted artists here at MIT with whom I can work on the visualization of the hip-hop Deep Space Monument project, as well as on the efforts attached to it. This means everything from the lectures and other tasks I'll be doing in support of my work here at MIT to the actual hardware. Now, I had to design today's poster myself, and to quote Devin from SNL's The Californians, I think it looks pretty sweet. But I would rather have worked with someone who could help us define an ongoing look for our project. This is the latest version of the solar sail by Elgard and NXTrack. I didn't even have this when I did the poster, or I would have hired Brian to do another wireframe. It's possible this is what will carry our time capsule into deep space. The designer refers to it as the Golf umbrella. That might sound silly unless you've seen what happens to a golf umbrella when a good stiff wind finds it. Good luck catching up. That's the solar sail. But what does our time capsule look like? The time capsule which will carry the music that we ultimately collect. I'd like somebody at MIT to suggest something. You can reach me here, and please spread the word. Thank you. Now I'll take your questions, comments, suggestions, or complaints. Richard Linares, good to see you here.
Hi, thank you so much. Fascinating presentation.
Thank you.
A simple question, do you believe
My favorite kind.
Do you believe in extraterrestrial life? Because you started off saying, the goal of this capsule is to, preserve hip hop for like 1 billion years or so. And unlike the presentation that you offered, and the example that you offered in the beginning, it's that the time capsule from that Nat Geo magazine was buried in Earth, like kind of remained on Earth, for humanity to be,
Yes.
And this project seems to be like launching hip hop into indefinite time and space, where I doubt that anybody, well, maybe not that, but are you supposing also that future humanity should be able to reach back to that time capsule, or is that just meant for extraterrestrial life? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great, great question. So to your first question, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's a super big universe. I don't think that, Carl Sagan, when he talked about Voyager and the Golden Record, he said that this is primarily for us. This is for us to think about how precious our lives are and what we make, and that we are, as human beings, connected planetarily by this thing of being human and the culture and art and creativity we produce. And when people talk about Voyager these days, it's primarily the Golden Record they have questions about. I mean, NASA certainly has on their website features of the photographs and the data that the Voyager has got, which is immense and still being used and processed. What most people want to ask about is the Golden Record, and they have a section that's just about that, because it provides a point of reflection. And I think that the idea of using the universe as a preservation medium so that whatever happens on this planet, something of this culture survives, is a kind of beautiful idea. And I think also that in the process of collecting these records and assembling people to reflect on what is great about this culture, the culture that no one thought would survive, that went on to jump hurdles and leap poles and throw hammers, the great culture. Why? What makes it so? I find that the chance to do that, and then also for those who aren't so engaged, to learn something about the universe, because just talking about what we're doing provokes questions from people who aren't necessarily engaged with space. People here at MIT are in various degrees, in various aspects of it, engaged. But again, outside of here, many people don't. They don't know where the moon is or how far away it is or how far the sun is or anything like that. But like I said, everyone looks up at the night sky. So we can start there. And by making this gesture, not only can we give a reason to think profoundly about why culture moves us. There are lots of people who don't like hip hop, who don't care about it at all, which is absolutely fine. But everybody cares about something. And most people care deeply about something. And so for those of us who care deeply about hip hop culture, Hey, the booze is here. Those of us who care deeply about hip hop culture, I think that this will provide a compelling opportunity for us to really talk to each other about why. When you're saying from the entire 50-year history of hip hop, you get to pick a total of 50 to 100 recordings. That means no albums, and that means about 1 or 2 records per year. That really forces you to have to, in groups, make tough decisions and talk very passionately and knowingly about what this culture is and why it's meaningful. And it's that I'm really after. That, and also the opportunity to tell some kid who doesn't know anything about the night sky, that's Polaris, and that's Orion, and that's the Orion Nebula, and it's expanding at 600 miles a second, even though it exploded 1,000 years ago nearly. That, to me, is exciting as the opportunity to reflect deeply and think engagingly about what hip-hop culture is. That's more engaging to me than if there are beings, like, as I just stated, the universe is very vast. And in a certain way, it might be a mild form of megalomania or narcissism to think that in as big a universe as this one, that somehow someone found us and came here. Like, it's all you got to do is just think about the fact that our galaxy is 100,000 light years across. It would take 100,000 years traveling at 186,283 miles per second to cross it. Nobody's coming here. Now, are there beings out there? Maybe, but they're just as distant. That's far less engaging to me than how we treat each other and how we teach each other. All right.
Hey, great talk. I really like this project.
And please say who you are. You'd be so kind.
Cullen Buie. I'm in mechanical engineering.
That's right.
And my question is two parts. One, what is the medium that the music will be on? So you said you wanted it to last 1 billion years, so it's not going to be on an iPod.
No.
So I'm curious what the medium is on.
Great.
And kind of a joke, but it feels to me like the hardest part of the project is selecting the 50 songs, because I feel like the technology is solvable, but picking the 50 songs feels...
It's a thing everyone asks about. They ask me most, what songs would you want to have on there? And my response is, I haven't made any selections. Now, I've been thinking lately that what I should have is what I call a curator's choice, which means that after everything's done, if I think these 5 recordings should be on there, I get to put them on. Just veto power. But people want to know, how are you going to select these recordings? And like you said, how do you preserve them is why I'm here. In fact, it's the reason I reached out to Brian to figure out how we were going to do this. Now, I don't talk about this in this talk because I really want to talk about that separately, but what I will say is that working with the skilled and talented PhDs and undergrads and grads that we've been working with, we've been kind of looking at silicon as a really ideal, perhaps, kind of material. I have to say myself, I've not landed on this as an absolute choice, but I think we're all very engaged by the possibilities of silicon wafers and engraving the waveforms into them and putting those together as our repository. Like I said, I still want to look at other things, and I think the other members of the team are open to that as well. But I know when I very first started thinking about this, I was thinking about we'll just put a bunch of vinyl records in there until I found out what happens to vinyl when you expose it to the void, that it's filled with all kinds of things that reduce humans to, bare versions of themselves. And so if you were to put vinyl records and put them into space, they would get wherever they're going basically as dust, if that. So it became clear that at some point we'd have to really just think about stronger things and things that I also had a commitment. And this is interesting because of the gentleman who just asked the other question. And this is something that Brian teases me about, and I catch you when you say it, so don't think I don't notice, about analog, about making analog content as opposed to digital content, just because it makes the retrieve issue simpler. Like, it's easier to make sense of an analog signal than a digital one, which goes through all kinds of other processing. So it's very important that it be an analog set of signals in a medium like silicon, which is incredibly inert and has good prospects for long life. I think Brian is also trying to get me to lower my expectations regarding the time length, the billion years, but I refuse to do so. Because that's what Voyager's estimate is, 1 billion years, so I can't go out short.
One really quick follow-up.
Absolutely.
A really quick follow-up. If you make silicon wafers with hip-hop records on it, you have to make a record. You have to make a silicon wafer player, like as a side project.
That's interesting.
Because I think that would be awesome just to have silicon wafers that you're playing music on.
One of the members of our team sent me an article, I could forward this to you, of somebody who actually made silicon LPs that play, I guess, presumably on a turntable. Like, it's a big doggone piece of silicon and with grooves in it. I don't know how it sounds, but what you're saying, a silicon player, that would be extremely cool and probably wouldn't be that difficult an engineering project after that, right? Very cool. Not as hard as going to space. I designed that too. So, like, I'm serious about the art call, serious. We really need help. Okay, yes. Yes, up there. And thank you for all these questions and for being here. I just want to share that I was talking with Clayton before you all arrived when this room was empty except for Amy, and I was just like, is this it? Is anybody going to come here? And he says, no, believe me, wait. Around 10 to 1, 5 to 1, 5 after, people start showing up. And there you were. Yes, thank you.
MIT time. My name is Maya.
Exactly, MIT time, right?
Yeah, I'm a grad student with Professor Linares.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, my question
so
is.
So you recognize his hand on the slides that we showed.
It's great. Yeah, my question is, we're still in contact today with Voyager after 50 years. So is ongoing communication with the monument part of your project vision, or is it more of a send it into the void and let it be free situation?
I so appreciate that question. It occurred to me doing this project that Voyager did incredible research and brought back images that we are still aghast over. Its place in the Pantheon is more than secure. But Voyager will spend most of its existence merely as a plinth for the golden record. It's overwhelmingly, most of its existence, it's estimated it'll probably circle the Milky Way like every 2 billion years, just going round and round. That it will mostly just be a place where the golden record sits. So to your question, I think part of the design of the project is that there's a certain level of communications that has to take place just to get this thing to get out of Sol, to get away from Sol. But after that, as we pointed out, this is where the distances between anything on Earth and anything in space just really comes to play. Like I said, Voyager is nearly a light day away, and its hardy electronics have been mostly shut off, and it's expected it probably has maybe 5 more years in it before it goes silent. It's going to enter the Oort cloud in about 300 years. It's going to take about 30,000 years going through it. It'll be way silent by that point. We just theorize about this. We're not going to get back any data or anything about it. So to your question, I think the way I see it, and I'm waiting for obviously more skilled and knowledgeable people, that's why I'm here at MIT, to tell me otherwise. I think the goal is to really control and communicate with it as long as possible, and then there's a point at which it just won't be feasible, especially given the nature of the craft. That we're not talking about something with retro rockets, or something with a lot of maneuverability, though this one we expect will have more than average, more than maybe some of the solar sails that have been launched to date. But I think, for me, the goal is really just to get it out there and to get the best telemetry from it possible, so we can say, well, this is where we think it's going. Our best reasoning tells us it's headed in this direction, and it'll keep doing that for thousands, if not millions of years, but probably not beyond that. I would like to put a phone on it, and just say, hey, but no, that's not gonna happen. It's a great question, though, and it's something I've thought about a lot. Like, after a certain point, it just goes dark, and you're just like, well, where is it? Well, one thing you can be sure of is that it's probably going straight. Unless something big comes, and that's unlikely because, again, the universe is so. You know what I didn't put this in here. I don't know if you guys know this, but this is something I learned in the process of doing this research. That, you see those scenes, one of the most exciting scenes in The Empire Strikes Back is the asteroid field chase, where Han Solo is trying to escape from the TIE fighters, and he's dodging asteroids. And it's extremely great cinema, but it's extremely bad science. I found out that, on average, asteroids in our asteroid belt are about 600 miles apart. So that makes any kind of chase, really, stupid. So it's just something that they've given us through film. It's exciting, but it's not part of the way nature works. Thought I'd share that with you. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, Harry.
Hi.
My name is Seth. I'm a first-year undergrad.
Seth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about you.
I appreciate that. My question is, why, unless I'm misunderstanding something, does the payload seem to stop at records? You even mentioned early on in your presentation the 4 pillars. Why isn't there also a presence of, say, a photo album of graffiti, from Atlanta to the Bronx, or, breaking instructions, more of a presence of the culture as a whole, as opposed to, rap as a sort of monolith?
Great question. I think part of it is that even though the Golden Record did have visual and other kinds of data on it besides just the recordings, I think what I wanted to do was make a focus on music. I think I wanted that to kind of take us over. I think I wanted us to have that conversation and keep it, if you will, as purely about that as possible, beyond the fact that once you start talking about pictures, you're talking about other kinds of storage, other kinds of image retrieval. Now, in the interim, I've started to think, as opposed to just music, it might also be useful to have testimony of some kind, to have voices, to have people sharing, just without music, just sharing who they are. People of various kinds, maybe artists, maybe fans, haven't really landed on that yet. But I didn't want it. It's almost like the same reason I didn't say, well, let's send 5,000 records. Let's send this, and I wanted to keep it extreme. I wanted to keep the process of figuring out this content extremely focused and linear. I wanted, whenever that starts, I want to bring as many people together to talk about this one thing. I don't want to necessarily say, well, we should have, a glossary of b-boy moves as well, or we should have the greatest works of, the greatest make sure we have phase twos, essential. It just all felt like, do one thing well, and don't try and send the catalog. And besides, they might bite it. I'm just kidding. Yeah. That's the answer. Do one thing well, and if we do one thing well, we can send them the entire culture later.
Really enjoyed the talk, and obviously we've been collaborating on the engineering side of things. In terms of,
were you here to see your slides?
I was. I arrived right on time. In terms of the type of music, do you feel like historical events would be documented, such as live performances or very important events in the history of hip hop? Will the music
live recorded events?
Yeah, like live performances or any sort of like major historical event.
I'm just trying to understand. Are you saying, so we're saying 50 to 100 musical compositions? Are you saying live musical compositions?
Yeah,
as well? like Double Trouble at the amphitheater. Do you mean like that?
Stuff like that. Yeah. Or do you think that would be part of it, or?
Oh yeah. I don't think it's. You mean as opposed to studio recording?
Exactly.
Records?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No. I don't. That's not the way I'm seeing it is records, and they could be live or whatever, but records, live, studio, it doesn't really matter. And as you can see by me just jumping off the tongue with Double Trouble, like some of those live records are some of the live records are some of the really best ones. So yeah, as far as that's concerned. Thanks. Great question. Yeah. Ah, there's more up above.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Ria Vedro, and I really appreciated
the talk. You're a great sculptor.
Yeah, I am an artist. I work in material science and engineering here. And
thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I'm honored. I, coming from like an art background, experienced this whole thing like a performance art project. And I'm interested, like an intervention, like there's a version of this universe that you've created here that could be a movie. It's like the ultimate flex, like going the furthest ever, for this genre, for this incredible subculture.
Would you hold just 1 second?
Yeah.
That's now see, that's interesting, and I want to hear what you have to say, but those are things that haven't come to mind as such, and I want to hear what you have to say about it. But going back to what Seth was asking, this is, I think, part of the reason that I haven't looked at these other things. It's like I think I want the people who love hip hop to solve one problem. Like solve one problem. What do we if we had to preserve the music, what would we preserve? And that's it. And I think also maybe it's also the thing that I feel, I wouldn't say expertise, but it's also the thing that I've studied the most. It's the thing that I have the most knowledge about in terms of the history of the culture. I'm not unfamiliar with the other parts, but it's the thing I have the most knowledge about. I think that's also part of what's driving me in that direction. Great question, but yes, you were saying how wide it is in terms of movies
I guess I'm trying to
alternate culture.
Express, I think there is real questions around monuments in general, stewardship of something a million years in the future after you pass, the finite nature of what is a payload on something that requires resources to go into space. There's the incredible exercise of MIT where people can solve any technical challenge met by an artistic idea as an exercise. And so I guess I'm really intrigued and I'm a fan of you. And I'm really intrigued, there's a part of me that hears this and is like, this is enough to tell the story of the idea of it. You would gather your people, you'd curate the playlist, you would have this visual artifact, much like the 1977 Golden Record.
We would document those conversations.
You would document, you would like design and the design package, which people living now and in the future on Earth would see, is very impactful, like all around that. Like the storytelling of it seems paramount to the impact of the project. And then there's like this other meta level, which is the actual object in space as like pushing the boundaries of what can be done at the edge of technology and
Yes.
into like unforeseeable time. And that seems, that's like a next level thing that's incredible. So I don't really have an exact question, but like coming from the art side, those are the things that emerge for me as I'm listening to this. Like it could live various lives, one as like a real thing and one as like where the idea of the thing actually engenders the opportunity for everybody to talk in the ways that you're speaking to. So I just would offer that as a curiosity, and I think it's really exciting, and it's obviously making us talk right now.
I look forward to when we continue that conversation. That's wonderful and brilliant. Thank you. Now, I think we are getting to the point where we have to let people get back to their way.
Yes.
And then close it. Is you finished? Can we take one more, or are we just going to call it a night?
I think we need to call it, 2:00. But I think if you'll remain here, others could ask you questions, around.
Absolutely.
You said beer, but I think it's soda.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No. So take that. Take as much of that as you can. Thank you for being here. This was better for me than it probably was for you. So, thanks so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.